they deal with this? Well, in that case, you need to look at each scenario and look into what goods are actually stolen and for what specific need or what or want that they're stolen for. I mean, you may notice that more and more thefts that are emerging now are based upon wants, and as I've explained in my previous podcast, wants are artificially generated by our conditioning. It's generated by advertising, marketing, societal pressures, or something else in the environment which generates an unnecessary and or excessive desire. By unnecessary, I mean unnecessary for our survival. I mean, a teenager stealing a ring binder from W.H. Smith, isn't a theft based upon empirical human need. I mean, granted, they may have received certain pressure from either peers or from their school, but the situation is not about whether they would have needed it or not. The situation is that ring binder was not provided for them to use. Instead, they lacked the purchasing power to acquire it and felt the need to steal it. Now, of course, that is different from the kinds of crimes like theft, which are committed on the basis of pure bravado. I mean, take for example that this teenager didn't need the ring binder for anything. Maybe he doesn't even go to school anymore, but felt the need to steal it to show to himself that he can, or show to his mates that he can. Well, that is a case of neurosis that is birthed from the disparity prevalent in our society because of the monetary system that we have. The whole monetary system, and that means barter as well. It's not human nature or anything like that for people to feel the need to steal things for this reason. Otherwise, kleptomania would be a severely widespread problem. The very fact that a lot of people aren't even aware of what kleptomania is a sign that it isn't that big a problem. Or either that or it's hidden extremely well. I mean, by the way, for those who are unaware, kleptomania is a condition where people feel the overwhelming compulsion to steal indiscriminate things. Not necessarily things they need or even things they can get away with stealing. Probably the most famous kleptomaniac to ever live was possibly Ted Bundy, the serial killer. Now, how this will be dealt with, to get to your next part of the question, is very simple. You just allow people to have what they need. You don't have 20 different companies all competing with each other, while producing 20 different models of the same damn thing that isn't even built to last anyway, all the while wasting precious resources. Instead, you have all those people working together to make the absolute best. And, a certain selection of the absolute best. And with no more ridiculous multiplicity to create, you create enough to match demand once you gauge how much demand there might be. In addition to this, you create a system based upon access abundance. That is one of the central points to an RBE. Say, for example, you need a device like a camera, for example. I mean, this example is explained a few times in our material, but regardless, what happens is you go to the distribution center, you check out a camera, and when you're done with it, you return it. As I said earlier, it's very much how a library system works. Another example is one of the things Peter Joseph said in one of the interviews that he was asked to do for RT News, and he said a guy will run out, steal a car that's worth $15,000. He'll get arrested and thrown in jail for possibly 10 years at the expense of probably $300,000. Just give him the car. You see, the very efficiency of creating an access-based system as opposed to an acquisition-based system will immediately start to dramatically affect the prevalence of crime. But anyway, moving on. Question 15. Hey Adam, I listened to your last Q&A and I was wondering if you could elaborate on something for me. You say that people should not be entitled to their opinions, because of their subjective nature. Could you clarify what you mean by that? Restricting someone's self-expression sounds very dystopian to me. Okay, well, again, I should feel the need to preface this with the fact that I am well aware of how much stock we as a society, and hence also as individuals, put into opinions and their existence as a supposed staple of freedom. However, this is simply not the case. As our society has progressed with a strange angle of stagnation, also in terms of societal operation, somewhere along the line we have been indoctrinated into the idea that our opinions are part of who we are. As such, we consider them as part of our identity and put a huge amount of emotional investment behind them. I can understand the poetic notion of opinions, or as you've phrased it, self-expression, as a means to orient ourselves and communicate. However, this behaviour has completely, by its very nature, detracted and alienated itself from actual factual discourse. We seem to value subjective opinions over facts, and impressions over evidence. Why is this? Such behaviour is not efficient. It's not fair or progressive. I mean, as a result, we've become stagnant with dogmatic and unchanging views concerning the universe and also ourselves. This is what we call mind lock. It's the reason why Galileo was ostracized, the reason why he was discriminated and imprisoned, purely for providing evidence of our heliocentric universe, which happened to disprove the ego-charged opinion that we live in a geocentric universe. It's the same notion that many forward thinkers, innovators, inventors, scientists, doctors, writers, thinkers, philosophers, and many, many more besides, have been hounded and dominated by what we call the self-appointed guardians of the status quo, because of one erroneous assumption, that to be proven wrong means that you are wrong, and hence an inferior person. This is complete nonsense. This has occurred because we have incorporated our opinions into our very identities, and when we encounter information or data that brings about a change in this previously held opinion, we feel belittled, confronted, insulted, and even attacked when we are told different than what we previously held as truth. To think about this in a positive light, we should look upon and consider the act of being proven wrong a good thing. Okay, bear with me. In fact, something to embrace and celebrate. Because, think about this, to be proven wrong is not a signal of failure. It is in fact a signal that you've been educated, and as Peter said in Zeitgeist Addendum, you've been elevated to a higher level of understanding and awareness. This mentality is one of the main barriers to progress. The change needed to make this world a better place must first occur within ourselves. I mean, as Mohandas Gandhi said, we must be the change we wish to see in the world. We must first recognize that our opinions, whatever they may be, are nothing but temporal. They are merely transitory stances on perceptual information that is subjective to our life experiences and the bias of our five-sense reality. And we must recognize that it is not a case of freedom. Our freedom on this planet as individuals and as a society should only be contingent upon what we can realistically do, considering the fact that the only empirical and tangible constraints on us are the empirical laws of nature. For example, I can have the opinion for the duration of my entire life that I can walk off the end of my roof and keep walking in mid-air. However, if I try and put that opinion to practice, I would most likely cause myself severe injury or even death. Now, is it productive for me to have that opinion? Possibly. It depends on what I use it for, I suppose. I mean, it's debatable how I can rationalize that to myself. However, it's not productive, however, for my own personal health to try and actually follow through on my opinion with the mentality that I have a right to this opinion and the right to the perception that reality must follow suit with what I perceive. In said case, I would feel entitled to be able to walk on air, but gravity will teach me a damn good lesson. Another example would be if two people, let's call them Larry and Ben, they're debating about what colour their living room wall is. Larry thinks it's green, Ben thinks it's blue. Now, they can argue till the end of time about what colour it is, because their individual perception arms them with differing opinions. Now, even, say for example, even the colour match cards from B&Q or whatever are not managing to settle it. Now, how about if both of these guys have their opinion as to what the colour of the wall is, and recognise that since they feel they are entitled to their opinion, neither of them are going to back down, and the system isn't, the problem isn't going to be resolved. Now, how about, just at that moment, Larry has an idea. He has access to a spectrum analysis device, or a spectrograph, or whatever it's called, that can assess what part of the electromagnetic spectrum the colour of paint on the wall falls under. Bingo. They have both arrived at a conclusion using the scientific method. Now, not so much that they used an electronic device that is not subject to the fallible perceptions of the human brain, but because they've put opinion aside and allowed for a continued conclusion to be drawn using a means which has a physical referent to the environment. That is what we mean by when we say arriving at decisions using the scientific method as opposed to making them with subjective human opinion. Now, a pilot can have any amount of opinions concerning his altitude. However, this is not sufficient or accurate. When he arrives at this conclusion by consulting the radar, the Doppler radar readout on his instrumentation panel, he will know exactly how far he is off the ground. Now, apply this train of thought to how we orient ourselves politically, economically, or socially. What weight does opinion have now when compared to the availability of hard, factual, and empirical data? The reason being is that an opinion is just that, an opinion. If it was based upon fact and data with a physical referent, then it wouldn't be opinion. As such, when it comes to our orientation on this planet, opinions serve as nothing more than a means to state a stance. This is an introduction to the value of accepting that opinion exists merely as a temporal stance prior to the receipt of data in each respective scenario. But anyway, I'm afraid this, for now, I've actually run out of time, so I will close here. I did have one more question, but no, it's too big of a question just yet, so I'll have to close here. Okay, next time, which will probably be, I think, the 5th of, or on and around the 5th of August, I'll be having my next interview guest on. It will be Ben McLeish, and basically we're going to be having a discussion about the current zeitgeist, not the film, but the current spirit of the age. I mean, and what comprises it, what societal values we currently hold and acquiesce to, and how they're reflected by our dominant economic system, and how they're inhibiting change. Sort of in a way an extension to a lecture that Ben gave at Z-Day last year. It was called Futurist Technology and Culture Lag. But anyway, I will thank everyone for listening, and take care now. Bye bye.